Okay, this is a joint meeting of the General Services and Parks and Rec Committee, which form what is, I believe, called the Golf Course Task Force. Correct me on the exact
Subcommittee,
title.
Capitol Hills Golf Course Subcommittee.
Okay, and present members are, I see Sergio, I see Frank Cioli, I see a third person in. I got to blow it up to make out who it is.
I saw your picture on
I
there.
think it's Joe Gilhouse.
Oh, Joe Gleeblehouse.
I think it's him. It looks like him.
Yes, it is.
Committee members then would be Sergio, Commissioner Jones, Jack Flynn, myself. Other council members joining are Tom Hoey
Oh, I give you two, right?
and Joe Igo. And we have a quorum because Commissioner Jones and Commissioner and Sergio are also on the committee on the task force. So DGS Sergio had sent a note responding with information that we had asked for. He sent a spreadsheet. I don't know where I blew it up and printed it out, so I got it in hard copy in front of me. It was the finances for the golf course, and I was doing my math on it. It looks like since the golf course opened, they've had revenues averaging $44,433 a week, and there were 14 weeks since it's been open, so that's $622,064, which is actually, I think, very good. There are potentially 6 weeks remaining, and I didn't multiply. I want to if somebody can quickly multiply 44,433 times 6.
It's about 250,000, Mike.
That here, I have to get my phone out. If somebody could do that for me, I can add it to the $622,064 to get what would be projected for the year. Wait a minute. Who am I?
Well, Mike, to be fair, we're probably not going to average that in September and October, right, Frank and Sergio, because the summer's over?
Probably not. We're likely not to average that.
Yeah, we're not going to average that. It's going to go down after the summer months, Michael.
Okay.
You can maybe average 25 or 30. Is that fair, maybe?
I think, Mike, Joe can speak to that, I think, more in detail when we get to that point.
Well, can you just project like how much you think we're going to make a week for the remaining potentially 6 weeks? Usually, sometimes I've seen it open on election day. So that's why I kind of rounded it out.
Right. If we remain linear at about $45,000 a week, it'll be $851,000 for the year. But we know we still do a little bit deeper dive to see how far it'll dip down seasonally. We're not quite there yet. I have the last 3 years projected. I have the last 3 years of actual revenue. Still have to dig into that a little bit, but it's not good. I wouldn't count on the $45,000 per week.
Oh, okay. So
Joe,
right now, like, what do you think we'll wind up at the end of the year? Like 800?
Yeah, if you do 850 in that range.
About 850?
No,
800 to 850,000.
Yeah, that's what I thought, which is not bad. I was looking at our budget projections in the 2020 budget, and we were projecting just a tad over $1 million, but we missed we didn't open until June 16th, and we would normally open maybe as early as April 15th.
Well, had we kept the same rates, the end of the year season would be 875,000. And that would have been short about 250,000 to make it neutral.
Okay,
If everything stayed the same with the new rates, we would even that out to $1,083,000. So
Yeah.
the new rates needed to go up to make it a budget neutral course.
yeah. And at least I haven't heard any complaints about, of course, I'm not standing out there listening to people, but I mean, nobody has sent me a complaint about the increase in rates. And it looks like we're getting a pretty healthy number of folks using the golf course and the driving range and then did our rent from Martell's, I know they couldn't open until, well, they've never fully opened, but they couldn't even open to any degree until I think May. So maybe I forget how much that was listed at. I think that's like, oh, wait a minute, I can look it up. I thought that was like $40,000 or $50,000 a year.
65, Mike.
No,
That Martell is not ever factored into the golf course operation.
Oh, okay. So actually, we did a pretty good recovery, I think, considering that we lost the first several weeks. I mean, COVID might have decreased it anyway, but once we opened up, we're matching probably almost the comparable weeks for weeks, in some cases probably a little over, probably over. So you figure we'll end the year with about, you estimate about 850 in revenues.
Which we kind of expected that. We expected, that's not a shocker. As a matter of fact, I think it's a little bit better than what we projected.
Okay, good. And I know the times that I walk the golf course, you guys keep it in fantastic shape. And that's what I've heard from people who have golfed it.
Well, this meeting is about a vision for Capitol Hills.
Yes.
I'd like to start with thanking everybody for attending the meeting. We certainly welcome everybody, but to me, it's a very simple meeting. It's what we have done so far, what we plan to do 2021 and forward, and what we will continue to do. I want to thank Joe Gablehouse is instrumental as our Deputy Director of Operation, looking at the operation. I want to go on record saying that this is the first time in a long time I hear that we haven't taken such a deep look at the golf course operations. Our intent is to maintain the golf course. It's a beautiful golf course. It's probably a state-of-the-art golf course. It's reasonably rated as far as fees. And as we saw, even with the increase, we saw a little bit of decline, but not as much as we were told that we would think. So we have increased revenues to meet a neutral budget. I think I'm confident to say, and Joe will talk about the numbers, that next year, starting when we start April and closing in November, we will meet budget neutral, and maybe even if we're lucky with no rain days or anything like that, we might even make some more so to reinvest into the golf course. We have reevaluated staffing. Even though with COVID we had a reduction in staff, we have done more with less. We have understood that there might have been an overstaffing. That, as you said, the golf course is in pretty good shape. It's in very good shape with the changes. I got to give credit to our superintendent there, trying to reevaluate how you could do better with a little bit less personnel. We also looked at the contracts. One of the contracts that was not favorable to the city was the golf cart contract.
Oh.
We were paying a straight fee, and there was a lot of fluff money to compensate when we have tournaments. We expect that contract to be somewhere in the 40,000, 45,000, rather than 65, 70,000.
So that would be a savings of about $20,000.
About 20,000, 25,000.
Okay.
It's out there now for bids, and we expect it to come back, but our predictions are to be somewhere in the $20,000 to $25,000 savings. We're also looking at the Golf Pro contract that was normally signed off.
Yeah.
We're comparing it with other golf pros around the areas. We what we did is almost what a realtor would do. What's a comparison in properties? What is comparison of our golf course with a Golf Pro contract? And we're going to be looking to send out a new proposal for a Golf Pro things. So all those things are factor in to reduce the operation costs, so that not only will meet our projected neutral, but we'll also make some more money to reinvest into the course. So that's our final goal. The other thing is, and before I turn it to Joe, who is my operation guy, is we have realized that Capitol Hills, it's a park with a golf course in it. And what we want to do is separate the two. And symbolically, not symbolically. Meaning that the golf staffing should only be seasonal, because that's when the golf course is open seasonally. And that staff that it's assigned there full-time is to go to maintain the other parts of the park, which is the park side. That will also reduce tremendously the operating costs of the staffing of the golf course. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joe before I go into what we plan to do in 2021. Joe?
Okay. And then after that, I have a couple of questions, and I'm sure the other folks have some questions too.
Sure. Okay. Sergio basically gave the show away. We're going to split our operations, split parks away from golf as best we can, both financially and operationally. So park type activities would be covered by our parks division. Golf would be golf only, so we can actually and accurately measure our costs and revenues just for golf. For example, right now we have our staff, full-time staff, they're only there about 3/4 of the year working at the golf course. The remaining time they're down here working at DGS. So this will clear up a lot of inconsistencies, clear up a lot of the gray areas operationally and financially. To look at where we're going to go financially, if to look at where we are right now, in terms of play, we're at about 74% of what I expect for next year, for the entire year. So I'm projecting out about close to 19,000 rounds of golf this year. We averaged 25,000 or so for the last 3 years. So I'm shooting for 25,000 next year, rounds of golf. That would get us to the $1 million mark with the current rates.
Okay.
We did implement a 30% increase, roughly 30% increase across the board in fees, playing fees. We didn't touch the golf cart fees, just trying to equalize, trying to find what the market is for rounds of golf. That's where we got our 30% from, was looking around at the other golf courses in the area, both private and municipally owned ones. And we were behind by quite a bit. Just by way of comparison, we were about, on average, obviously we have, I don't even know how many different categories of golf. 18 different categories. 18 different categories. Discounts, right. 79% of our golf play is discounted by some way, either as a veteran, as a resident, or non-resident, veteran. 18 different categories. So it took us some time to get our arms around that. But we were averaging $21 per round last year. Right now we're averaging 28 and change per round. So we're on our way up. I'm a lot more confident in our ability to hit those revenue goals. I took a look at the last 4 years of revenue. We had started in 2016 at just over $1 million, and we dropped as low as $800,000 in 2018. That's a pretty serious drop down. So we had to pull out of this decline. As Sergio said, if we had a full year, if COVID didn't happen in 2020, and we implemented these rates, over $1 million, $1.83 million, easily. So we are heading in the right direction. Any questions I can answer for you?
Well, I had a couple of questions, and then others can ask questions. If Jonathan's department is going to be getting more responsibilities for things going on for other types of recreational opportunities, is he going to get an increase in funding?
Before we go into that, I want to make sure that as a council member, you understand that the 2021 budget looks a lot different than the 2020 budget for the golf when it comes down to golf. We have switched personnel around. We have not increased the bottom line, we switched personnel. We have been talking with recreation. This is when we go into the future. What are we doing in the future? We have been talking in the future with the commissioner and the deputy commissioner of recreation, and we continue to have those discussions because we need to know what the needs of the recreation departments are. We have taken over the park, so now we will be maintaining whatever goes into Capitol Hills. If we decide that it's soccer fields, DGS will be maintaining those soccer fields because that full-time employee staff now is going to be dedicated exclusively to the park side, not to the golf side. So there will be no increase on their work, nor on, with the exception of scheduling what team plays in what field. There wouldn't be an increase. So one of the things that we kicked around with the recreation department is what are the needs of the recreation department? Is it soccer field? Is it baseball field? Is it lacrosse field? Is it, I don't know, cricket field? I don't know. So I would turn that over to Jonathan Jones and Justin Adams, who were here, who were part of those discussions, to tell us this is what we feel that should go on there.
Yeah, so with that, thank you, Commissioner. The one thing we realize is that in the folks who have done this in other areas, Windsor, Connecticut, Plano, Texas, Detroit, Michigan, in 2018, they all went through some type of participatory activity. And I go back to what we did with the skate park. I feel that it's best not for us to just say we want a softball field here, a baseball field here. That's not going to solve our problem. But if we work with either a sports division of a design firm like we did Stantec. I'm not using Stantec. I'm just telling you what we did previously. But we need to work with someone who understands fields, understands landscape, and then understands what we can fit in the space. At recreation, we can program it all day, but the result of what the people need and what we're going to be able to program for has to come from some expertise after they take a deep dive, because we can go to DGS and say, yeah, we need bluegrass here, but they need to know how much bluegrass, how frequently to water it. And so there's another level of expertise that we're going to need outside of our, city experts in order to make that work.
So
We concur with that. We concur with that strategy where we would need to put an RFQ or an RFP and have somebody tell us, because again, go back to expertise. You just can't put a baseball field where we think it's nice. You have to consider the sun. You got to consider the wind. You got to consider a lot of things. So we concur with Jonathan about seeking out an RFQ.
I know from the perspective of the council, a while back, we had a number of people came to us regarding soccer fields. Not so much about baseball fields. I guess we must have enough of those, but definitely soccer fields. And then, Jonathan, would you, obviously, from, other experiences, you've helped run some of these, meetings with the concerned groups,
Right.
the soccer players, the hikers, I guess, the cross-country skiers and the walkers and,
Right.
and the sleigh riders.
Right.
I'm assuming your department would either be able to contract with somebody or advertise and run a series of meetings with stakeholders.
Yes, we would, and we usually do that in conjunction with the planning department. But that is you're so right about that. Lincoln Park is a great example. You have to talk to the homeowners, you have to talk to the people who will use that space. And recreation, we usually partner with planning about that, and now DGS, and we would definitely be involved in that, and actually help get some other people involved that have went to us about using fields that should be a part of the conversation that haven't really been a part of what they want to see at the golf course as of yet.
So do you think that conversation with stakeholders would start in the winter?
It could, but I think the first step would be to put out that RFQ and have that as a responsibility to hold and host those meetings, a part of the
Okay.
consultant that signs onto it. And we would just be the inner agency that, works with teams and gets them to the meeting, like we did at Lincoln Park and also with the skate park.
Okay. Anybody have any, I can probably think of
In
some
lieu
questions.
of that, we prepared in our engineering budget, you'll see an extra $100,000 for 2 projects for RFQ to study exactly what Jonathan's saying. So we have placed the money, which somewhere around 40,000 we expect. That's engineering estimate for somebody to come in and say, after we decide what it is, and say, this is how you do it, and then we work from there.
Okay, Derek Johnson has joined our meeting. Derek, we've been basically talking about the funding for the golf course. For the time that it's been open, it has been pretty much meeting its goals for raising money. Then Sergio and Jonathan were talking about starting some sort of a way of getting stakeholders, not just golfers, but stakeholders, maybe soccer players, whatever, to become participants in talking about maybe what could be part of a future vision for those parts of the golf course that might be amenable to, because it's a huge tract of land and it has more land than just golf courses. So Derek, that's where we are right now. I was going to open it up to questions.
Mike, I was going to ask a question about the property.
Okay, Jack.
So, Commissioner Jones, or Sergio probably knows this. We're talking about the land out past the 12th hole, right? That's how much property is out there, would you say, in the farm? That could be used for
200 acres. We're estimating 200 acres.
of non-golf. That's a lot. Good.
Non-golf, yeah.
And then how much property is outside past the driving range? Would you say?
Well, that is a question that we need to look at. We need to look at the deed restriction that might be, because that infringes into the Norman Skill Farm. We could say safely that we have about 200 acres of property that we could use. Now, maybe more if we find that there are no deed restriction going into that side of the property.
Because when we were walking the course, I think Tom Hoey brought up the suggestion of maybe a net going all the way down the left side to walk, and then have soccer fields out there. Is that a possibility?
That's a possibility, but talking to the superintendent, he wasn't too happy with that because of visuals.
Mm-hmm.
He felt that, again, getting a consultant on board would get other ways to get to the area that we want to get into. We might have to relocate the driving range, and so I give access to families and children to go into the soccer field. But he wasn't too happy, and I'm not too happy about having a fence. That it makes the park up. Now it makes the golf part ugly.
How about
we've also-
how about the property? What's that, Michael?
Oh, I was gonna say, we've also been joined by Alfredo Ballerin.
How about
And
the property-
Alfredo,
What's that?
just to bring Alfredo up to
He's
speed,
been on it.
the golf course for the weeks that it has been open this year is doing financially well. So which means that next year with no COVID, we would probably have revenues of over $1 million. And then the discussion centered around having some sort of a outreach to stakeholders. So anything that is redesigned in terms of non-golfing recreation would have some input from stakeholders. And that's about where we are with the conversation.
Now,
Jack?
how about the
Jack-
property
Jack-
along the garage area? Do you think we can utilize that or no? On
We
the dog.
could utilize that, and we could also utilize the other part where, right now, it's where we store our material, which is right off, as a matter of fact, when we walked it, that would be a perfect entrance into some recreational areas, such as the walking paths and stuff like that. But again, we need to get a better understanding, what are the deed restrictions, if there are any deed restrictions, which we don't think they are, but that's what will be part of the RFP, just to get a clearance. And we understand that we own it, but we don't have anything documented that says that we own it. And we have to have some right of way because the power lines are there. So, again, somebody needs to research all that, and that would be put into the consultant's lap.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Okay, open to other questions from any, okay, Joe, I saw his hand first and then Tom.
Just had a few comments. I spoke just over the past weekend, some leagues that moved over to Norman side. And they're all, as soon as I found out that Albany was open, it's so much better condition than Norman side. They're all willing to come back next year. There was a question about leagues. They cut back on leagues a few years ago. And I think that was to open more time up for normal golfers that weren't in the leagues. And one thing that's come up for years, because Albany Golf Course, Muni as we always called it, was a place for the youths to go and play, get them off the streets, whatever. And to be honest with you, it was dirt cheap, and that's what he wanted it to keep them off the streets. But right now, if you don't make room for a youth population to learn the game, to love the game, it's going to fall to the wayside like bowling has. There's no youth bowling anymore. Maybe it's up in the suburbs. There's none in Colony. There's none in Albany anymore. So that has to be looked at, I think.
Maybe Jonathan could speak to
Yeah,
that.
Councilmember, I'm glad you said that. In 2000, early in our last meeting, we talked about how we had a golf connection with PGA. We've spoken to him. He's interested in talking more about that. So, that could work. PGA, we haven't been able to get a hold of them yet, but I'm
They
sure
did
we'll
something
be able
like
to
that
get a hold
probably
of them.
10 years ago. They had some teaching and set land apart and time apart.
Yep.
It might have been on where the driving range is now.
Yep.
Another comment I have you, Jonathan, the tennis court that's over there.
Mhm.
I'm told, and I don't think it's been moved, but it was always facing the wrong way.
Yeah.
So it was right into the sun, so nobody uses it. And if they don't
Exactly.
use it, either change the court or pull it out of there and move parking in there or something.
Right.
Maybe
No,
you could use some of the parking lot.
So I use it.
That is, the only one that I understand that uses is Councilman Jack Flynn and his daughter, I think.
That is true. That is true. I do
That's
use
the only
it.
one I know. But again, goes back to hiring a professional and expert that is able to put these fields that are best. At the end, we might decide that tennis is not as important up there because we have other things, and that might become an extension of the parking lot to accommodate more soccer moms and soccer dads. Again, we've got to go back to hiring a professional, and I can entrust Jonathan and Justin to do a research on it and put it
I
together.
completely agree. And just one other thing I want to mention, someone brought up to me, no dirt bikes, okay? But mountain bikes along the perimeter might be a great idea.
We have a public comment involving
Yes.
not mountain bikes, but dirt bikes.
Yeah,
which are-
I'm not dirt bikes, they tear it up.
Yeah, dirt
But
bikes,
that's all I have to
that's my.
say, and I thank you. Thank you all.
I think Tom had a question, and you're muted, Tom.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yeah, this is exciting. I'm glad I joined this meeting today. With the Albany Soccer, we had met with Justin, had really good conversations. We had Beverwick Park. When we did the golf course tour, we saw all this property that my dream, and Justin could probably tell you because I believe he was from the Guilderland area, is to have enough of a facility where we can hold tournaments, which would be fundraisers. I mean, you can make a lot of money. It would help our local businesses, especially hotels, food places, gets people from other parts of the area, the county and multiple counties into Albany and show them this is what we got. And, we're the capital city and our sports, unfortunately, are not capital. I mean, it's just, we can do a little bit of work. Some of the other things I wanted to bring up, I wanted to ask, and I know I got a lot here, so I'll try to keep it brief. In the wintertime, the golf course is fantastic for parents wanting to bring their kids sleigh riding. I've been doing it over 20 years now with my stepchildren and now with my son. That place is crowded. So I do have a concern. Will the parking lots continue to be plowed in the wintertime so people can park? Is there any way we can make money on this, that people come in? Because I'm there and you stand on the top of the hill and watch your kid go up and down the hill. And I hear people talking, and they're from like Bethlehem and New Scotland and everything. They come to Albany because of our hills and sleigh riding on the hills. Is that another way we can make money? Can we somehow, I'm not saying outprice it, but even $1 or something to help with the work? I heard years ago we used to do cross-country ski rentals. Now we do rent skates at Swinburne Park. I've gone there with my family. We've rented skates and used it. Could we look at doing something like that in the wintertime to raise funds? The tennis courts that Joe and you guys were just talking about, when we did the walkthrough, somebody had mentioned that'd be a great place for a pool, especially the condition of our pools around the city. We know there's a lot of they need work. This might be a good location. There's a bus that goes right there. There's a bus line that does it. And so I got a couple of questions in there, and I didn't know, somebody mentioned the superintendent isn't happy. I don't know who the superintendent is. I'd like to find out. And then my last comment is are we looking, the budget's coming up. Do we have, to hire this consultant or whatever, it's going to be a tough fight to get them in this year, but we really want to get it in the budget, I would say, this year if we're going to do anything in the next year or two. And we really need to do something. This can't wait 5 years. So I know I hit you with a couple, but, thank you.
To answer all your questions, yes, and yes. One of the things that Jonathan Jones and Jeff is in the meeting, we have kept an open mind. I don't care if it's a soccer or lacrosse or whatever it might be. Is whatever we can fit and whatever the community needs. I have some concern when it comes to building them. Are we going to need bathrooms? Are we going to need restroom facilities? So, but that comes later. Once we figure out from an input from the community, we can figure out where to put what and where. Monetizing things, yeah, I mean, to cover the cost, I have no problem. But then you get into, do we want to monetize the dog walkers? Do we want to monetize the ski walkers? Do we want to monetize? It becomes an issue. That's a political issue that I don't want to answer. That's something that the council needs to put weight on. But we will certainly do whatever it is, and we welcome all the money that we possibly can. And to answer your last question, is we have placed an extra $100,000 in the engineering budget to provide for some consultant work for 2 projects, and one of them is the Capitol Hills.
Thank you, Sergio. Who's the superintendent that you mentioned?
Scott Gallo.
And it's, Scott.
Scott Gallo.
Okay, thank you.
Alfredo? You're muted.
Thank you. And I apologize for coming in a little late. I was in, but I had a screaming baby, so I didn't think you guys wanted to see that. I did catch the piece where you spoke about saving funds with the cart and looking at our contracts. When we did the walk, one of the things that was that you noticed was, or I noticed, was they had certain trees had little plackets that people had paid to have
Sponsors.
to have the tree named after an individual. And the idea of having sponsors.
You muted yourself. Sir,
Sorry about that.
yeah.
And so when we saw the idea of having sponsors per hole on a seasonal basis also came up. Is that something that we're looking at to try to bring in additional revenue?
Again, we are looking at everything that's possible to make sure, and we feel confident that with Recreation and DGS working together in this project, we feel confident that we will raise enough funds to just the golf part to sustain that. Golf is different than a park. It's a lot more maintenance than a park. So we're confident that with these changes that we've planned, that we made already, some of them that we plan to do in 2021, we could fund itself and fund the golf area. And we will look definitely to fund the other side. If we get sponsors for a soccer field, and like Little League does or something, why not? Why not? Everything is on the table, Councilman. We're not leaving anything out.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
One of the things which the legislation that we passed back in June said, it says the Common Council wishes to explore the creation of a legal entity that is designed to generate revenue and recruit corporate and private sector sponsorships in support of all Albany recreational venues operated by the city of Albany. So I don't know, has that been thought about? I know that's probably, I guess what we should do is have Corp Council here for that one, but
Yeah, I think that's more.
I mean, that I think merits some consideration, but that is designed to go even beyond the golf course. But it merits consideration and probably should be part of our future discussions.
Everything is on the table. We might have some problems with Martel because we need to look at his contract. He might have exclusive sales that we cannot have sponsor, for example, of another vendor. We cannot put a Pepsi machine because he might have rights to, again, this is where the consultant comes in and says, this is what you can do, this is what you need to change to do this, and this is what you're gonna have to do to change it. So, but again, everything's on the table.
So what do you think should we reschedule another meeting? I mean,
Mike, I have another question.
oh, Jack?
And I asked this earlier to Frank. Is there any possibility that we extend the golf past November, depending on the weather?
That's a very good question, and a question that was posed and answered by the superintendent. Because of the frost that we've been getting already, he will not be able to play until about 11, 12 o'clock. So with the day being shorter, also sunlight is shorter, he thinks that we would make more damage and cost us more money to keep that open. I was surprised to hear that the golf course is already frosting. In the last couple of weeks, they had a couple of days where frost froze the ground, the upper layer of the golf course.
Thank you. I have one more question that I got from a constituent. They were wondering if you could have signs in the traps that say, keep the dogs out of sand traps.
Oh, yeah,
That was from a constituent.
okay,
We
Thank
can
you.
look into that.
sure.
We did get one public comment mailed into us, which I can read. It came from Alana Klein, and he says, as you know, I've been pushing for a safe space for people to ride their dirt bikes and ATVs. Is Capitol Hill's an ideal location? And he seems to say it's not. I realize, admittedly mostly through other people's comments, that the city would or might have to consider some form of liability insurance. I'll be the first to admit that I don't have all the answers in regards to illegal recreational vehicle use. And to reiterate, I in no way condone reckless use of said vehicles on city streets. However, I do believe it's our responsibility to provide a safe space for residents to enjoy their hobbies safely. I have specific ideas, but for this meeting, I just wanted to present the subject as a basic concept. Well, I think Alana answered his question. I don't think, I mean, obviously you don't want dirt bikes on the golf course because you're going to rip it apart. Mountain bikes, yeah, I like Joe's idea. There might be some places for mountain bikes and some of that.
We have to take consideration that the neighbors, we don't want to be, some of the outlines of the golf course in people's backyard.
Yes.
You know, I wouldn't want to have a motorcycle up and down, especially making noise in my backyard on a Sunday morning. I mean, we have to be respectful. But then again, it might be something that we could do towards the Norman Hill side, where there is no property, with Norman Hill Farm side. I don't know. It's something that a consultant, and I don't know, is recreation feel that there's a need for such a thing? Is it a group? Is it one person or is it?
Well, that's the only one that I got talking about dirt bikes. In fact, that's the only comment I
think it
got.
goes back to, we need to hire the consultant,
And
figure out what the public wants.
Yeah,
It's nothing that we need to be surmising now.
yeah. Certainly not dismiss it, but we need to find out what's going on.
Do we have any other questions from the folks here? Otherwise, I was going to ask Danielle or John Raphael and Michelle if anybody connected into the meeting from the public that wants to comment, or did we get any other comments coming in? And that,
I was just looking. I don't see any comments coming in. I just was checking the Common Council mailbox. I don't see anything coming through. I'll keep
Okay.
looking.
and then I guess my question is for us as this task force on the future of the golf course. When should we reschedule? Obviously, I would assume we should maybe in a couple of months, whatever period of time you think is the proper period of time, look at where we are in terms of trying to scope the thing out for the stakeholders to see how we're going to, approach getting recommendations from them and evaluating what can be done as to what's recommended. So I guess I'm just looking
We
for some
agreed
suggestions.
last time we agreed to meet quarterly, so, January, February, sounds like a good time for us to get some numbers together, figure out what's interest spikes, and then re-meet, and then make some plans for the summer of, the spring and the summer of 2021. I think quarterly is more, I mean, we're going, I hate to say this, but I'm afraid of snow, I'm afraid of all of that. So if we meet quarterly, it's gonna be a better for all of us. I don't know, recreation, do you agree, disagree?
Yes, I do agree. I do agree.
Mike, how about January? End of January, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind this too, okay? Depending on what you're looking to accomplish and what you're looking to get information on. More than likely, we'll start with, Sergio talks about snow. We get hit with snow in January. It's not the first thing we're going to be doing, but we're going to be working on getting this RFP out in January. We're not going to have any info to give you in January.
Right.
But we can touch base again in January, or we can wait maybe and do it at the end of February, where we might have a little bit better of an idea of where we are.
In January, we'll be able to tell you, the golf cart, bid came back. You know, because it's out to do in November. We'll be able to tell you what changes we are putting out for the Golf Pro contract and other contracts that we come up with.
Very little though.
Very little though, but nothing actual physical that we've done. But we'll be able to give you some progress report on some of those items.
But I think if you're looking for more info, I think you're better off maybe the end of February might be better.
Yeah.
Okay. And then like, when do you think you would actually have some sort of forum that the public would be aware of, that they could come in and contribute
Well,
ideas?
again, the RFP's got to go out first. The
Yeah.
funding to put the RFP out would have to happen in January, February, where the funding would be available. We put the RFP out, then the responses have to come back, and you got to bring the consultant on board. So you're probably looking at the spring before any of that would happen, for that. But, as far as operations, there'll be things to tell you about operationally maybe in February. So I think we're best bet, our quarterly meeting would be January 25th, but I'm thinking maybe February might be a better fit, maybe February 22nd.
Sure, I can put that in as our tentative date.
That's not a council meeting date, is it, Danielle?
What day of the week is
Did you
that?
say, what was the date? You said February? I missed it.
Yeah. I think he
We
said
haven't-
February 22nd.
We haven't done our
What's
calendar for
scheduled
next
yet
year.
For 2021. That doesn't happen till like October, November.
Okay.
Oh,
But the council always meets the first and third Monday.
So that would be the
For a
last
regular
Monday,
meeting.
so
So you
why
should
don't we
be.
tentatively say February 22nd?
We'll pencil that in and.
27th?
22nd.
22nd.
February 22nd.
Yeah.
That's the last Monday.
The last Monday, and then we should be able to give you some operational updates, some updates on contracts, where we are at that point, and then hopefully be able to tell you we've at least got the RFP out to bid on our, for a consultant, and at least go from there. I just want to be realistic, because otherwise, especially if we get hit with a couple snowstorms,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, does anyone else have any other questions?
I just want to make sure that we didn't lose that the golf course is still operational. The snow trails are going to be maintained. None of that's changing. Nothing is changing the golf course. The parking lot will be plowed. The normal operations of the golf course will continue until we come up with a strategy, different plan, which sounds like late 2021, maybe 2022. But the trails would be maintained, the joggers and everybody else could. And in the spring, the dog walkers could go and just before we open, and everything still is clean. There's a lot of rumors out there that things are going to be cut and nothing's going to be cut. We're going to continue to maintain the level of service, and we're just going to improve the level of service, quite frankly.
Mike, I have one question. Sergio, who plows the bridge over New Scotland Ave? You guys, or is that the state do that?
The bridge is us, right?
Yeah, well, the bridge
We
over
do.
to Scotland Avenue go.
Oh, yeah, I just wondering.
Yeah.
We do.
Well, thank you for all your work. I think it's, we appreciate it. I think you're moving in the right direction, and, we look forward to progress, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So do I hear any motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, I'll second that.
Aye.
All in favor? Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. I thought this was very good.
Have a good
Hey,
weekend,
Mike.
everybody. Have a good
Mike,
evening.
can I talk to you and John Raphael real fast before we leave? Everybody else can leave. I just wanted to ask for something.
Have a good night.
Well, it's a recorded message. It's a recorded meeting.
He turned it off, didn't he?
No, I